Hello and welcome. This is AMD Athlon 200GE, the lowest end Zen CPU released in late 2018. This was the most inexpensive Ryzen CPU for that time, and probably is even in 2025. The CPU features 2 cores and 4 threads with Radeon Vega 3 as its iGPU. How is this going to CPU fare in 2025? We are about to find out. For your information, you can grab this CPU for about $15 from AliExpress. And this CPU is guaranteed to work on most of AM4 chipsets, although it may not work on 500 series chipsets. Moving on, the motherboard you see is Feifan B450 motherboard from China. This cost me $40. So, you are looking at about $55 for a CPU and a motherboard. It sounds like a decent deal, except I really don't know how the CPU is going to fare with Windows 11. Well, let's find out. Let's install Windows. I am also going to try playing 2 games, Crusader Kings and Conan Exiles. Why those 2? I've tested those 2 games on 3400G and 4300G, meaning I have something to compare with. This motherboard has 4 USB 3 ports, and I needed 5 USB ports. Therefore, I am using the internal USB 3 port for 2 additional USB 2 ports. Installing Windows on a low-end system like this is always time-consuming. Let's see how many hours this is going to take. Well, that took a while. Windows Update itself took only an hour since my Windows Media was up to date, but downloading the 2 mentioned games as well as installing them took 2 additional hours. This is in spite of me having backups of the games on the drive itself. Anyway, you can see my Geekbench 6 CPU scores here, which isn't very impressive. It's worse than Intel N100 in both single and multi-score. To make the matter worse, Geekbench OpenCL score is identical to Intel N100. At this point, I am not getting my hopes up for being able to play the games at any reasonable frame rate. My fear became reality when Crusader Kings 3 took 25 minutes, I repeat 25 minutes, to reach its starting screen. For the record, this game has notoriously long startup time, and Ryzen 3400G took 5 minutes in comparison. And it gets worse. I am getting 5 frames per second. The game is unplayable, period. It gets better when I zoom out, but you don't play this game zoomed out, so that's that. At this point, I wondered whether it was even worth my time trying Conan Exiles. The game defaulted into 720p because it was deemed unplayable at 1080p. Well, even at 720p, being playable is a bit of a stretch because the game shutters like no tomorrow. It is playable only on an open field with barely anything to render. But game loading time was reasonable, and this is far better than my previous experience with Crusader Kings 3. Besides, 720p doesn't look that bad. Overall, I would use this CPU only for web browsing and basic computing like using Word. Everything feels heavy and slow on this system, and even watching YouTube was a bit of an ordeal, and the Geekbench scores reflect the sad reality that this CPU is too aged to go on. For the price to get this system together, you could well purchase a N100 mini PC from AliExpress, which should perform slightly better. and you will get a case and a power adapter with it. Therefore, value-wise, getting an Intel N100 mini PC is no-brainer. But I am going to say that the CPU performed better than what the scores showed. In fact, I did feel that the general computing was smoother than it did with Intel N100, although this is a strictly subjective opinion. For a lowest-end CPU that came out 7 years ago, it did better than I anticipated. Thank you for watching and see you next time.